Deep in the heart of southern Africa, long before the first villages formed along the banks of the Zambezi River, there lived a great and powerful serpent god named Nyaminyami. Legend says he was born from the river itself, with scales that shimmered like the sun on the water. He ruled the river's depths and ensured that the river flowed as a lifeblood to the people and animals who depended on it. For generations, the Tonga people lived in harmony with the river, their lives woven into its ebb and flow. They believed Nyaminyami was not only a god but a protector, a friend of the people, ensuring their crops flourished, their fish were plentiful, and their lives blessed with water. They celebrated him in ceremonies, offering food and gifts to the river to honor his presence. But the peace was not to last. In the late 1800s, foreign explorers began to venture deeper into Africa, intrigued by the vast resources of the land and the powerful Zambezi River. They marveled at the river's strength and spoke of using its force to bring power and prosperity to distant lands. The Tonga people watched with unease as strangers took measurements and planned for a future they could not yet understand. In 1955, after years of surveys and discussions, the colonial authorities made a monumental decision. They would build the Kariba Dam, one of the largest hydroelectric dams in the world. The dam would bring electricity and industrial power to southern Africa. But for the Tonga people, it meant something entirely different: the end of their way of life. They warned the authorities that Nyaminyami would never allow such an intrusion. As construction on the dam began, the Tonga people were displaced from their homes along the Zambezi. Many had lived on this land for generations, and they wept as they watched their villages taken down and their fields flooded. They believed that disturbing the river god's home would bring disaster, but their pleas went unheard. Still, they left offerings on the riverbank, hoping that Nyaminyami would protect them from afar. In 1957, the first sign of Nyaminyami's anger came in the form of a devastating flood. Without warning, the river swelled, and a mighty storm descended upon the dam's construction site. Equipment was washed away, and workers fought for their lives. Some claim to have seen the serpent god rise from the depths, his body twisting through the torrent as if to remind all who dared challenge him that the river belonged to him. Despite the disaster, the authorities were undeterred. The engineers worked tirelessly to rebuild, refusing to believe in the power of the old legends. To them, Nyaminyami was just a story. The dam was too important for the progress of the region. Yet the river remained unpredictable, and the workers toiled under the constant threat of Nyaminyami's return. A year later, in 1958, Nyaminyami struck again. This time, the flood was even greater, wiping out much of the construction. The loss of life was tragic, and even the strongest structures could not withstand the serpent god's wrath. As his mighty form twisted through the waves, it seemed as though he mourned not only for his river, but for the people who had forgotten the ancient balance between nature and humanity. Despite the fury of Nyaminyami, the dam was eventually completed. The Zambezi River was harnessed, and the mighty serpent god no longer rose from the waters. But the Tonga people mourned deeply. Their homes were gone, and the river they had once lived beside so peacefully now felt distant and unfamiliar. Yet, they never forgot the serpent god and continued to tell his story to the next generation, warning them of the power of nature and the need to respect it. To this day, the Tonga people remember Nyaminyami, the great serpent god of the Zambezi. They tell stories of his wrath and his love for the river, passing down the legend from parent to child. Though the dam stands tall, the bond between Tonga and their river god remains unbroken, a reminder that no matter how much humans build, there are forces greater than us all.